Greetings. Excuse me. Thank you for joining us for the reading of Christ's letters and a little annotation as I go along. Tonight we begin with letter 4, so I'll begin with the introduction. But before doing that, let's just take some time to go into that stillness and silence. That place where there's no thoughts, no feelings, no concerns, no worries, no doubts. Just opening to the fruits of these letters to come to us. And Christ universal, by whatever name we want to call this, infinite intelligence, God essence, space science, by whatever name, doesn't matter. It's about consciousness awareness. And so we come to be reminded of why Christ came in 2,000 years after the death of Jesus on the cross. Not the Christ. Jesus died. The Christ is forever. Before anything, after anything. It is the very consciousness that brings everything into form, everything into expression. And as we go along our daily lives, and we allow ourselves to open to this presence that's greater than our three-dimensional mindset, we hear answers, solutions, just the wonderment of the allness that is, expressing individually through and as each one of us. Everything we do is this consciousness doing it through us. And it does it in accordance with our beliefs, our desires, our feelings. And this is what Christ reveals to us through these letters. So let's just be in this openness, knowing that in this time that Christ will nurture and nourish us individually and as a collective into our world, bringing forth the kingdom of heaven on earth, the era of love and peace and joy. So listen as the Christ within reveals His truth to us. So I begin by reading the introduction from whatever document you're reading from. I read from Christ Returns, Reveals Startling Truth, but all letters, all collections are the same. Christ says, I've come to rectify the misinterpretations placed on the teachings given when known as Jesus in Palestine 2,000 years ago. Christ also says, because people are on the threshold of a world crisis of enormous proportions, it is vital for survival that I, the Christ, should reach all who will listen. Reading my letters gives you the true processes of creation in which you yourselves play a major role. It is imperative you should understand them sufficiently to enable you to embark on the implementation of a higher vision for all humanity, beginning with ourselves, I interject. It is impossible for my spiritual consciousness to take on human form. To enable me to speak to you directly, I've deprogrammed and prepared a receptive, obedient mind to receive my truth and frame it in words. She is my recorder. And I always give thanks to our dear recorder, who at this time is 99 years old. This is 2018, and she lives in South Africa, and that's about all we know about her. She has chosen to be anonymous so that she doesn't distract her life and her events from the totality of Christ. Christ Returns, Reveals Startling Truth, Letter 4. I, the Christ, have come in my love for you to make a summary of all that I perceived during enlightenment in the desert and tried to teach the Jews in Palestine 2,000 years ago. Some details of my earthly life have been related in letters 1, 2, and 3. If you have read these, you will know it is of the utmost importance to your well-being to understand that while my followers eventually created a religion they call Christianity, founded on reports of my life and teachings, I am not dictating these letters to teach and confirm what my followers have taught. Contemplate that. Christianity is a formal religion which purely for reasons of expediency took on many beliefs contrary to the spiritual truth of our source of being. What has the spilling of my blood to do with universal spirit? As you must now realize, my teachings from the very beginning of my mission on earth in Palestine has always been born of the highest spiritual truth of existence, having nothing to do with human concepts and relationships as taught by my human minds. Taught by human minds, not my human minds. Therefore, I repeat emphatically, while my persona on earth 2,000 years ago was that of Jesus, the purpose of my presence, the Christ presence within these letters, is to teach sensitive and inspired souls, to teach them, to teach us, how to draw on divine assistance during the future horror in which the world and will ultimately be embroiled. For this reason, my powerful longing to rescue those who can receive me has been crystallized in the form of the truth of existence within these letters. Know this and heed this. So Christ is warning us, as he did with the Jews before, when he came, he was speaking to the Jews, and these letters also pertain to the Jews, but these letters also pertain to the Christian, because he's saying the Christians have so confined the truth of existence on the spilling of my blood that the truth of existence has been ignored through, in most cases, innocent misunderstanding, misinterpretation. So this is why Christ has come, to set the record straight on the purpose for Jesus coming, and now, 2,000 years later, through science and everything that we now know about the laws of nature, the laws of God, now we have a greater understanding of the bigness of the universe. Instead of being a flat planet as the center of the universe, we now know more about ourselves, our world, and the nature from which we've come. I would have you know and take particular note that I came to the Jews in Palestine 70 years before Jerusalem was razed to the ground. So he's saying, I gave a warning to the Jews before. They didn't heed me, which he will say in the next paragraph. And he's coming now before we reach these world crises of enormous proportions, which I believe we're already in, at least the beginning of. And so it's a warning, if you follow these letters and take them to heart and live them, not just read them, but live them, embody them, then you can bring forth the kingdom of heaven on earth. And I claim by the end of this year, we can do it. It's in the twinkling of an eye that we can wake up to the Christ within us, the Christ that has all the ideas, all the solutions for harmonious, cooperative coexistence upon our planet. I came to the Jews to warn them that their code of conduct would be of no value to them when the future time of travail came upon them, sending them out into a hostile world. It is recorded in the gospel that I wept in despair, lamenting the fact that I would have gathered the people as chicks beneath a mother hen's breast to protect them in their time of destruction. But the people would not heed me. Instead, their religious leaders put me to death. But after the dispersal of the Jews, when their temple was taken from them, did they learn from their experience? Did they wonder why such a catastrophe had overtaken them? No, they continued in their old traditions and belief in their superiority, although repeatedly historical events proved to them that they were subject to disasters, as were other people. At this very time, they have chosen to ignore the truths of existence, as I taught them in Palestine, and are bringing upon themselves the self-same conditions as followed my earthly life in Palestine. Just as the Christians, no one's exempted from the universal law of cause and effect. Thought with feeling causes the conditions in our world. When we change our thoughts and feelings, we create a different world. It's that simple. No matter where they may reside, the materialistic values, the head for an eye traditions, are drawing to them the human sorrow they have created for others down the ages by their arrogance and greed. Everything they have endured, they have brought upon themselves. This also applies to those who, through expediency, have allied themselves with Jews because of their financial power within world financial spheres and world markets. Who is it keeps the vast majority of the world population hungry when there is sufficient food stockpiled to feed people adequately? A prophet, and we know that from David and all the grain, all the vats, the vastness of grains that when the people, when they're famine, King David decided we're going to open these vats and feed the people instead of keep holding them and keep people hungry while those that held these lived in the abundance. If profit as motive for existence were abandoned, okay, I'm sorry, that's a question. Often I interrupt myself and miss the flow of what Christ is saying. Who is it keeps the vast majority of the world population hungry when there is sufficient food stockpiled to feed people adequately if profit as motive for existence were abandoned? Given the will, financial leaders could formulate and embark on plans to distribute the surplus of goods to the underprivileged. If they were to do so, they would find the entire universe responding with blessings. World economy would flourish, and peace would become a world condition. There is no reason for starving on our planet. We know there's an abundance of food. In America, we throw a lot of food away. We have people starving. We have many of homeless population who, due to whatever conditions, we would rather throw food in the trash and the dumpsters and waste it rather than give it to those who are in need, who would be so appreciative of this. But no, and this is what Christ is saying, we have to change our mindset so that all people have the opportunity to live heaven on earth. Before this can happen, what has already been created in consciousness and by aggressive, debased actions worldwide must first be drawn into materialized human experience, not as retribution, but as a natural working of the laws of existence. A favorite example, many years ago, I remember a leader, a vice president, I believe, in Walmart, died living a net worth, not a gross, but a net worth of $16 billion. $1 billion of that, which would be small to him, could be given to all the employees of Walmart. And in doing so, either as a one-time gift or as a raise, a substantial raise. Imagine what that could do to our our nation economy. And we have Walmart all around our nation as well as around the world. But just thinking of America and the economy, the low income that we're in, if that had happened, that would be such a boost in the economic flow of providing goods and services to people, paying off debt and so forth. But before this can happen, what has already been created in consciousness and by aggressive, debased actions worldwide must first be drawn into materialized human experience, not as retribution, but as a natural working of the laws of existence. In other words, instead of hoarding that billion if that individual had released that billion. But he's got to change his mindset first. He's got to do it with joy and with love and with appreciation, with knowing that he's doing something good for all society. Rest assured that countries who resist the evil of others are only resisting the consequences of their own seeds of consciousness and actions in years gone by. Therefore, bully boy tactics, the ferocious attack on the mighty upon the weak, no matter how the I'm sorry, my eyes just don't work. I had cataract surgery last week. I had my second, so I'm having a little difficulty with the light that I have around me. Therefore, bully boy tactics, the ferocious attack of the mighty upon the weak, no matter how intransigent the weak may appear to be, can only bring even greater times of trouble for the bullies. Where they have experienced a pinprick, they are stockpiling consciousness for the future devastation they are presently dumping on others. And 9/11 to America is a good example of that. Perhaps they should regard the pinprick from the weak as a bugle call to alert them, to alert us, to their downward slide into moral decadence. Because such people are constantly breaking the laws of existence and drawing destruction of an unparalleled magnitude upon cities and earth, it is my intention in these letters not only to summarize all that I taught and lived in Palestine, but to spell out clearly the underlying causes of your approaching world crisis, which I did not cover when last I came to mankind in speech. These letters have been written prior to the most crucial time in your history, and when the travail is truly upon you, you'll wonder why I did not warn you earlier. And this is why I'm so committed to these letters. Since 2006, it's not about Dwight, it's about whoever gets this message and passes it on. The idea is not to be enthralled by the video, but to go to the letters and read them, study them, embody them, make them real in your life so you can bring them into your world and the world that you're responsible for creating. Going back to the letter. But I have to tell you, through receptive minds, I've been trying to alert the world for the past 25 years. So that would be 1985, which is about the time the Course in Miracles came through and some other truth teachings came through. Christ isn't saying this is the only way. You know, I've been trying for, well, ever since I left, the Christ, left in 2000, I came back and I've been coming back and I keep revealing through mindful beings the truth of existence. But now I've really come with a full-fledged effort to save the world from the possible destruction that's going on through enlightening people. Okay, I've been trying to alert the world for the past 25 years, but neither media, nor publishing house, nor TV was prepared to listen and give me the opportunity to speak to you through my agents. Politicians could reach you, but I, the Christ, could not do so because of the hardness of your hearts and your refusal to concede that I, the living Christ, could return at this time to the programmed and dedicated minds to warn nations of what they were creating for themselves in the future. The churches who claim to believe in my existence have been as self-absorbed in their own humanly conceived religious traditions have had the materialists. Now, at the 11th hour, when fear has descended on the masses, and they are prepared to heed my words, the doors must surely open, or again my efforts for humanity will have been in vain. I've come to say, there will indeed be a sorting of the goats from the sheep, as has been recorded in the Gospels and the Bible. The sheep refer to those souls who can peacefully receive the highest spiritual truth yet dispensed on earth. The goats refer to those who do not have the capacity to listen to anyone or anything because they have too great a rebellious spirit and ego drive. And if you want to read about the sheep and the goats, as presented by Christ, it's near the beginning of letter 3, where he didn't know what to speak to the crowd, and so he looked on the hillside and saw sheep with the shepherds and the goats being all haphazard. Very good analogy to draw to those who listen to the way for good and peace and harmony, and those who reject it. Why will they be separated at this time? They will be separated because those who are able to receive the truth contained within these pages and to live by the guidelines of the laws of existence will find that although the next period of world history will be bitter indeed, we will continue in comparative peace and protection, fulfillment of need, and upliftment of spirit. The goats, unfortunately, will have to endure all the horrific force of their innate rebellious consciousness. This next paragraph is bolded. This is not a punishment from someone on high, but a natural working out of the law of resistance. What you carry in your minds and hearts eventually externalize in your body, life, and environment. Where you resist and rebel, life offers resistance to you in the fulfillment of your desires. I have long since ascended to the highest frequencies of consciousness vibration in the celestial kingdoms, and am divine consciousness itself individualized. My consciousness can encircle the globe to whomever calls upon me. So is it with all the great teachers who have lived on earth and were enlightened and perceived the reality of the source of all being, and have taught people from their exalted level of enlightenment. They were lifted in spiritual power to penetrate the dense veil of human consciousness and perceive what truly lay beyond the world of matter. They saw as clearly as previous mental conditioning would permit the basic unity of creation within the realm of creativity itself. I really hope you are reading along with me and you can feel the flow that I interrupt often. One and all, speaking of the teachers, the masters, one and all have, after transition into the next dimension of existence, escaped the treadmill of reincarnation and moved on into ever higher realms of individual pure spiritual consciousness, to the portals of universal consciousness itself. They have become individualized divine consciousness, possessing the power and the insight of divine consciousness. And he talks about this all through these letters. And it's for us to take on this mantle of understanding so we can be the masters of our lives and the world that we're responsible for creating. This is one of my intentions, is to assist all of us as leaders. You know, I've hosted this call since November of 2006, but I involve all those on the call, in the live call that we no longer record, to be a leader, to be the light, shamelessly, have the courage to go out and bring forth the kingdom of heaven on earth. We too share in the Christ consciousness, as I said in an earlier letter. They combine the heights of intelligent love with the heights of loving intelligence, combining the power of will with the power of purpose. We are equally male and female in their drives. We are the perfect demonstration of strength and nurturing. They are the perfect example of what all men and women should be striving to attain. To attain to such perfection of being, the human spirit must set aside all divisions and rivalry. Whoever may be your acclaimed prophet, you can be assured that he is life itself, and powerful within the brotherhood of all great teachers. Each prophet, each teacher has perceived the same reality and lived in such a prayerful way that as to ensure he will eventually achieve the goal of every man, perfection in paradise. And we're responsible for creating paradise. The spirit of us already knows paradise. It already knows the truth of existence. And it's already within every one of us as the seed that is growing and nurturing and being nurtured into the fullness of being. It is vitally important you should understand this and realize that the divisions you make between your teachers are wholly erroneous because we are all united in our common source of being. All the teachers come from the same source, the same consciousness. Each of us can get in touch with this consciousness and become that master and that teacher and that prophet. We, these collective of teachers and masters now, the consciousness of them, we are a brotherhood of beings of life, each manifesting through our individuality the highest truth of our source of being. We are equal in purity, power, beauty, grandeur of spirit, and love. Therefore, the sheep of every religious persuasion, those who have sufficiently evolved in spiritual understanding of the fundamental unity in your source of being, should swiftly seek to unite in equal brotherhood in your towns and countries, and reach out and bond with your spiritual brethren worldwide, irrespective of all that is taking place in the external world. In other words, put aside our differences. Christian, Muslim, Jew, put aside all that and go to the truth. Go to what Moses taught, the power of the individual when unified with the Father, the power of Jesus when unified with the Christ, the power of Muhammad when unified with the God essence of himself. So all these prophets are all saying the same things. They're all striving to create brotherhood. Now the letters come forth for all Muhammad, Buddha, all the teachers are all contained in these letters. These letters are not to separate. They're not to create a religion. They're to bring us together as a brother-sisterhood of one unified humanity. All for one, one for all. You should transcend all religious differences, Christian, Muslim, Sufi, Jew, Israeli, Palestinian, Hindu, Buddhist, etc., and regard yourselves as all being equally within the safe haven of universal love and universal intelligent protection, at peace with yourselves, with each other, and with those who are determined to fight to a finish. Only in this way will your planet survive. Only in this way will your planet survive the turmoil which lies ahead of you. That's all in uppercase and bolded if you're not reading along. I have also returned to all those who are neither Muslim nor Christian, Buddhist nor Hindu. I have come to those who desire, they long to know the reality behind all existence. I've told you that I came in the persona of Jesus to the Jews in Palestine. I may well have said that I came to the Arabs in the persona of Muhammad, since Muhammad and I are of one spirit. To divide us into persona, having different names, Jesus and Muhammad, or Muhammad and Jesus, is the same as giving identical twins different surnames because one teaches literature and the other teaches maths. So clear. We are both of Christ consciousness, both individualizations of divine consciousness. When on earth, we both spoke of a God of love and mercy, according to the way in which our humanity permitted us to perceive our inspired knowledge from God. So we each come from our heritage. We each come from the society, the culture that we're in. And Muhammad and Jesus are no different. So Muhammad came from the Arabian background, I believe. I'm very ignorant of the history. And Jesus came from the Jewish. So here are these two factions opposed to each other, and yet each has a prophet that's come forth to say, let's come together in brotherly, sisterly love. You must bear in mind that we were both human beings who had been deeply conditioned by our traditional beliefs inherited down the ages. Therefore, our inspiration came to us through minds already possessed by other ideas. As I had previously told you, inspiration, unless directed into a clean, deprogrammed mind, will always take on the overtones of convictions derived from earthly childhood conditioning. The rational mind, which takes over when the inflow of inspiration ceases, begins to explain the new knowledge and insight in terms of what is already accepted by the human mind. So we have to be constantly aware of our lower consciousness. Jesus says, when I was a child, I did childish things, and now I'm, a grown up and I do mature things. We had to learn from our mistakes. We had to learn from our misdoings to not repeat them, to see that this is not only harming my brothers and sisters, but most importantly, it's harming myself. And what I put out, I get back as I believe it is done unto me. But as I have already told you, I was a rebel almost from the outset of my life and could not accept the Judaic beliefs. I was a clean, eagerly receptive, open-minded vessel into which the truth of existence could be poured in the desert, enabling me to see universal consciousness clearly. So in letter 1, he talks about his early childhood, and he was a rebel. He rebelled against the Judaic ways of punishing God that kept people in illness and sickness and sin and having to do something for the sin to get forgiveness from God. And then Jesus came as, because he was an open vessel, because he was challenging the Jewish beliefs. So that can't be the God. That can't be a God that wants people to suffer. He didn't know what God was. So when he went through his baptism and in the desert experience, he was open to find God. And he was in the purity of no more distraction. So the first thing he had to do was clear out his old belief system so that the new beliefs could come in. And so after 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, fasting and asking and finding answers, the answers came to him. The consciousness revealed itself to him of what his consciousness really truly is. And it's already within each of us too. When we quiet our mind enough and go into that stillness and silence where all creation comes forth from, we can get all that Jesus also got. Going back to the letter, now our perceptions of the very highest order. We are of one mind, one life, one love, reaching out equally to Muslim and Jew and Christian, Buddhist and all people, atheist or agnostic. Our only motive in calling on them is to bring them inspired, heart-challenging insight, which will enable us, to recognize our essential underlying brotherhood in spirit, encourage us to think new thoughts, relate each to the other peacefully with forgiveness in our hearts, and thereafter live our lives differently, drawing light from our source of being. I personalize this a lot. It's in the letters, Christ talks about there and, outside of us. As I read, I want to take it into, because it's talking about me, it's talking about you, it's talking about us. We are to take on this mantle of perfection that's already within us. It's our judgment that sees things right or wrong. Only our judgment. The perfection doesn't see that at all. It only sees perfection. We would both, speaking of Muhammad and Jesus now, we would both speak of universal consciousness to you who are living in this present scientific age, because you have traveled far into scientific understanding and can now receive what we both have to say. Together we say with one voice, heed, listen, we and you on earth, all are one at the very roots of our being. Contemplate that. Think of the prophet of the Arab nations and the prophet of Israel being Jesus now. Not Moses, but Jesus. These two are saying, listen to us and put down your weapons, put down your disagreements, put down your differences, and look at the God of me and the God of you is one God. There's not a God of Moses, a God of Arab and God of Israel. No, there's one God. There's one God. There's one creator. We all say this. All the religions teach this. And then go about and justify separation and pain and suffering. We, Jesus and Muhammad consciousness, or all the prophets' consciousness, we are aware of your problems on earth at this present time. We are aware of the centuries-old conflict between Judaism and Islam. But this rift has nothing to do with us. Your squabbles leave us unmoved. We don't care. God is just a God for the good. God is a consciousness that gives us anything we want. And if we want war, God says, go for it. Enjoy it. Have fun. But if you don't want war, we have a greater way for you to live and bond together. Why jeopardize your own good, your own future felicity by fighting over some concept which is meaningless and therefore without value? In reality, you adhere to your chosen religions because in the depths of your heart, you're reaching out to the source of your being, although you call your source of being by different names. We are both aware of the struggles of individual Jews to live a good life, and of individuals of Islam to truly reverence and venerate Allah throughout the day, attributing all they do and achieve to this power, working on their behalf, and of Christians immersed in their beliefs and salvation by the blood of Jesus. You are all striving to attain goodness, but will never do so while you remain divided by your beliefs. I mean, this is just so, even in the Christian church, there's division of Baptist and Congregationalist and Catholic, or just Protestant and Catholic, and these divisions go on and on and on. Each one, know that the Christian won't want to hear this, but they're all cults. They're all following a specific ritual of belief and denying all the others as being right. But once the maelstrom of the present world consciousness of mutual aggression has been fully spent, the day will surely come when Muslims, Jew, Christian, Buddhist, and Hindu will gather together, rejecting their differences in religious beliefs, and mingling as one people to give thanks to divine consciousness, out of which we have drawn our being, and from which will come all future boundless blessings of beautiful, inspired, and caring lives. Together, we will rebuild on old foundations and will say, let such a thing never happen between people again. For now we know that we are the roots, that at the roots of our existence, we are truly one. When I make you suffer, I too am lessened in divine life, and my own suffering follows me. We and the brotherhood within Christ consciousness are also fully aware of Buddhists and Hindus, followers of the Tao, the spiritual adepts of the Philippines, the spiritual adepts in the Philippines, and every other sect of religious discipline in every country, which is aimed at reaching and touching, even momentarily, the equilibrium of our universal source of being. We are aware of all. You are all encompassed within our universal love, compassion, and caring. We are all encompassed within our universal love, compassion, and caring. You are all important to us, irrespective of your beliefs. for you are all one at the grassroots of your being. Your souls are unified in divine consciousness. One and all, you are unified and one at soul level within your source of being. And this is where we ended last week. So this is where we'll begin next week. I'm going to review this next week because it takes us into separation and the ridiculousness of it into cooperative coexistence, of recognizing each one of us as the purity of that which has brought us to being. And these letters are to remind us of the truth that we are. So thank you for joining us this time, and I look forward to seeing you after our next time. God bless you. Namaste, and may you have peace in this day, this hour, this life. Many blessings are ours if we just but open to receive them. They're already ours. Bye for now.